What's up, guys? Lenny Reed, Dynamite Diesel Products, and today I wanted to share with you my relationship with a very special friend, Rebecca, who this year has become our CFO. Was it this year or last year? It was last year, but whatever. Who's counting? It's just days. They go by. So Rebecca, I really kind of wanted to share with all of our people, our friends, the shops that we sell to, everybody, kind of who you are, how I met you, what you've helped me with, not just being employed here, but really the first day that I ever met you, I was going through a divorce, owed the government much tax money. It was miserable. It couldn't have been any worse. So Rebecca was actually the branch manager in the Monroe facility at Columbia Bank.
Columbia Bank, that's correct.
I invited you to my shop, said, please come out and check out my place. I'd like you to look at this place. And at that point, I was probably just looking for affirmation from somebody to tell me I wasn't a horrible human being, because everybody else said I was. Ex-wife, government, all of them, they hated me. But you came out and kind of took an interest into the company and what we did, and have been helping us ever since. So I guess that was probably 2010-ish, circa?
Ish. Probably 2012.
Think so?
Think so.
Okay. Maybe it was 2012, maybe it was 2010. I probably drink more than she does.
That is true.
She lives on an island,
it's a fact.
so it's not 100% true.
It is very true.
On an island, you just get to drink and it's just things, it's just daily, but whatever. Okay, so I guess before we really break into it, you do live on an island now. You come and hang out with us in our facility 1 week, about every 5 or 6 weeks.
That is correct.
And you do work for us.
I don't like the snow, so I try not to be here every day during the winter.
Very, very tropical girl, came from Seattle and doesn't really want to deal with that anymore. So she moved to the other side of the planet where it's always warm and, average 82 degrees?
85, 87.
That's a bummer for you and Jason.
Such a bummer.
Yeah. So she retired. Is no longer a banker. Hit me up and said, you need a CFO, which sounded very, very, very expensive. and it's priceless, actually. So I've had this conversation with a few of my friends on the phone. And actually one of my buddies, I hit him up because he's running a bigger company than me. And I said, man, have you ever thought about having a CFO come in? And he said, actually, just a few months ago, I brought in a CFO. And, the thing about CFOs is they want you to stop all of your spending, so it's going to change. But then you start making money, and they tell you you've got to start spending more money. The CFO come in, they're going to tell you got to stop spending, and they kind of get some traction. They figure out where you're at. And then all of a sudden, they're telling you what you need to spend on and what you can't spend on and all the things. And that's really, as an operator, owner, technician that's in the shop, I don't necessarily know that. I've always ran this company off of emotions and what felt like it was a good decision, but mathematically didn't ever really prove to be the right decision. Got lucky a lot. And really, with you being here, technology's coming into play. Just this week, explain to everybody, what have we done just this week? Because it feels miserable. Everybody's in a bad mood, but it changes things for the better, right?
It does. So for the first time ever, we actually can track our inventory in and out and throughout the shop. And since inventory is our largest asset and how we make money, it's really critical that we have a system that helps us manage that. So now, after how many years of you being in business?
24.
You've grown up to the next stage, and you now have an inventory management system.
My small technician brain would have looked around the room and said, I trust all my employees. I don't need to worry about theft. But since you've been a part of this company, I've learned that it's not necessarily just theft that we need to be concerned about, but taxes play into a big deal. And if we're buying parts, we're destroying parts, testing, mistakes, more testing, more mistakes, all of that stuff, it goes against the bottom line. And even though if we buy 6,000 of something and we sell all 6,000 of them, that'd be really profitable. but you definitely don't get that lucky. So you're teaching us, this company and myself, a lot about all that. So how could that be important to, we sell to a couple hundred shops. How could that help one of our shop owners right now today with just quality control, or I guess control over inventory?
Well, if you have inventory and you have accounts receivable, you're on accrual-based accounting, which means you actually, when you write checks to buy your inventory, it's not an expense. It's a balance sheet item because you're increasing an asset. So you don't actually get to capture the expense until you actually sell the product. And your accounting system typically does not remove the inventory for you. You're having to do it manually, which if you're not doing it regularly at the end of the year or the first quarter of the year is a lot of work for somebody to go through and adjust that. And you may not be actually realizing all the costs that you could or should be. If you do have fallout for R&D or for testing, or you send products to someone for a promotional use, you actually need to be removing them from inventory and actually taking the expense immediately, so that you actually get credit for the expense of doing the activity that you're doing.
So when you say credit for the expense, we're referring to like the feds, right? Mm-hmm. So the feds see you're buying all this stuff and you're basically accumulating wealth because your inventory is going up. Is that correct?
Well, no. Well, when you purchase inventory, your inventory level goes up.
Okay.
But if you're just doing the adjustment, you're delaying when you can take the expense.
Okay.
So otherwise, you don't get the expense of the inventory until you sell the product. But if you never sell the product,
yep,
you're never taking possession of the expense. So if you've used it for something else for business purposes, it's better to move it out of inventory and actually take the expense so that you can use that real time to your advantage,
okay,
versus waiting or it never happening. Same with our warranty. That has been a big overhaul.
Yep.
While warranties, we do them, product comes in, we would always turn them around and there's loss of product on our end for that. It was never being accounted for, mm-hmm. and that inventory was just disappearing, vanishing.
So
what now
could have been made profitable by selling it again, we took care of our customer, did the right thing on that end, but when it comes to our inventory, the product vanishes and we're not selling the product, so the company still looks like it owns that part, that piece,
correct.
That widget,
never capturing it in cost of goods sold.
But it never gets captured in COGS. So comes time for the end of the year, how does that shake out, or what do we got to do? What do most shop owners have to do if they haven't? And this could be, if you own a drive-in service center and you've got a mechanic that you hand him $3,000 worth of front end parts, and he's given axle joints, and he walks back and he says, "Hey boss, I'm sorry, but I broke one of these brand new axle joints." At that moment, you've got to order a brand new axle joint, which is $100 basically nowadays. That guy gets to finish the job. You're paying him to finish the job. What happens to your company on the book side if you don't expense out that U-joint?
Nothing. You don't ever capture the expense, and it's wasted money down the toilet.
And if you do capture the expense, what happens to the company?
You get to capture the expense, and hopefully it reduces your tax liability.
So if you're profitable,
yes,
and you show that your $3 million a year company has generated $100,000 net profit, you're taxed on that, and you're going to be 40% of that money is going to be vanished into taxes, right?
Potentially, depending on the type of company.
So, good round numbers because I'm round myself. But basically, what would happen is that $100 U-joint would be taken out of the profit line, so you'd be taxed.
It comes out above the line so that your below the line is a lesser amount. Yes.
So you, by expensing out that U-joint on that job right then,
you would have $99,900 in profit.
Taxable,
yes.
in profitable.
Correct.
Profitable, taxable profits. So that's why it's so critical. And I hit her up this morning about 30 minutes ago because she's really been it's been her week. She's ball fire this week. And this is now my second podcast of the day. I had a great workout. I'm drinking lots of water, eating eggs and steak. I feel good. Got lots of energy right now. And I was like, Rebecca, it's time to show Rebecca. And she's like, my hair, my this, my that. And we were actually arguing over t-shirts. And now that the argument's over and I've totally lost. You wanted to do a free t-shirt design, and then we're doing another t-shirt that we're going to sell.
Yes.
During the argument, I was lost. I didn't understand what the hell it was you were trying to say to me. But basically what you're saying is I'm going to buy $2,000 of this style of shirt, and they're all giveaways. So you're going to instantly buy those. You're going to take those as an expense.
Correct. As a
and those all get
expense.
given away.
Correct.
Automatically. Like we don't want to collect a $10 bill for any of those.
They won't go in inventory. We'll capture the expense day one.
But the other style of t-shirt you're going to put in inventory.
Yes.
We're going to try and sell.
Because they're cool.
They are both of them are
very
cool. Like I would say that t-shirts around here is always an argument. Baseball caps, t-shirts, toilet, you name it, we can argue over it around here. So I get it. Like that, the light bulb finally clicked on. Now I was trying to say,
sells.
Cool swag sells.
Cool swag sells.
I was trying to say, make all the t-shirts the same design. And you told me no, because you want it to be a very clean, this one was free.
Yes.
These ones we have to charge for.
Correct.
If we make them all the exact same, then you don't necessarily know how much of them got expensed out.
It's messy.
And yeah, I get it.
It's messy.
Guys, I'm doing this for you. Like I'm taking one for all of us because, I started out as a shop owner, decent technician, decent with customers, moved into, manufacturing products, but I've still never taken like lots of business classes or anything like that. So when I'm looking at like the cost of insurance, I think, dear Lord, baby Jesus, why does it cost so much? But if we don't have the insurance and I don't buy the insurance, I'm risking a lot. Fire, theft, whatever, right? That nuclear is not covered by insurance, just so you know. But then that comes out of my profit line, right?
Correct.
So if I don't buy the insurance, I'm putting my company at risk, and I'm also potentially giving the feds, even though it's taken out of my risk, I'm giving them more taxable income.
Correct.
And I could lose my entire livelihood because I didn't have all the right coverage of insurance just so I could give them their 40% of my profit, right?
That is correct. And Lenny hates paying taxes.
I've paid a lot. Like everybody says I'm the world's worst driver. It's actually not true. By definition, we are all taxpayers and all contribute to the road fund. I pay a lot of taxes, so I want to use all the road. That's how I look at this. Pretty much. Like texting.
Fair argument.
I had a dude pull me over one day. He was super angry. Like we were on the freeway out by Moses Lake, dead straight for like 100 miles. And he pulls me over. He's just amped. Like he was a federal game agent. Like he was angry. Red haired guy too. And he walks up and he's like, "Are you drinking?" I'm like, "No, not drinking at all."
Just texting, sir.
And he's like, "What?" I'm like, "I honestly was just not paying attention." And I felt like I was out here by myself, didn't realize that you were driving an F-250 behind me with red and blues on the top. And, I was just doing whatever I wanted in my own lane. He kind of laughed and then realized that he pretty much woke me up from a nap and let me go on my way. But I wasn't drinking. Fortunately, it was out in the middle of nowhere. So I just like, if I'm going to pay that many dollars in taxes, I want to use the entire road. That's my thought. I'm not being selfish. I earned it. Yeah. Okay, so what else, shop owner wise? Tools. If somebody goes and buys a brand new scan tools are kind of expensive. Let's say they're $6,000, $8,000, $10,000. What, as a shop, and then you've got a monthly subscription nowadays too, because technology is. So a lot of these guys are spending $8,000 on a scan tool, and then they've got a $100 a month payment going off to whoever is supporting their scan tool. What's the proper and the improper way of purchasing that scan tool and making that monthly payment?
Depending on the cost of the equipment, you do have to consult with your CPA. But typically, something 6,000 or 8,000, you're going to take as an expense because it's not. There's a dollar threshold that you need to go over in order to have it amortized over a certain period of time from a tax perspective. So the smaller tools, usually 15,000 or less, you're going to take as an expense that year. In your equipment, you need to make sure you're keeping track of that type of stuff so that your CPA does know what those are or not, so that at the end of the year they can help make some decisions. If it's a larger piece of machinery, that you cannot put it on your balance sheet till the machine arrives and it goes in service. If you're going to make progress payments to have one built, you should be using a chart of account called equipment and process, so that you're still capturing the dollar asset of what you're doing, but you can't create the machine in your accounting software until it's on site, because that's when you can start depreciating it. From a subscription standpoint, that just would go into either technology or dues and subscription, depending on how the company is choosing to code those. And it's just a normal expense.
Those expenses come out of the company's taxable income, correct?
Yes.
Now, when you say that you're going to amortize that out, the term amortize, it can be taken out over 4 years, 7 years, or if it's expensed out in 1 year, you've amortized it that year.
Correct.
And technically, like, amortization pretty much means, like, what's it boil down to?
Most of the time, it depends on the size of the equipment and the lifespan. There are limitations depending on that, but most of the time, if you're gonna say you get a 5-year loan for a machine, most of the time your CPA is gonna set the depreciation schedule to match the financing, so that it's retiring kind of at the same time frames. The only time where they might make a different decision is Section 179. Depreciation expense, which is a tax tool. Sometimes there are benefits within a specific year that allow you to take more depreciation because the government is trying to encourage growth and expansion, and they'll turn on a lever to make it more attractive for people to increase their fixed assets.
Buying tools. A drive-in service center.
Large, like semi-truck vehicle, things like that. So sometimes it'll get depreciated out a little faster than what your financing might be in order to take advantage of those. But it's a balancing act, because at some point that's just kicking the can down the road. And if you're not paying attention, you still could end up owing tax, a lot of it, down the road if you're not. If you don't have an advisor to help you balance those activities.
So in my case, when you weren't my CFO, I was working with our accountant, and I struggled every single year for 23 years. Because at the end of the year, the accountant's like, well, you owe this many dollars in taxes. And I'm like, bro, had I known I made that kind of profit, I would have kicked the can down the road. I would have bought something new right now, so I didn't have to write a $150,000 check in my taxable income, because I can finance tools to make myself less profitable, and that will potentially make the company more profitable. But that's where your company has to start growing with exponential sizing, right? So you get it to where you're making money on this, you got to buy more big fancy tools, you got to add more employees, now you're buying a building, and then you get it to where it's making too much money, and then you're adding more tools, fancier tools, more efficient tools. You're still always going to pay tax out of the profit. But I feel like small businesses get trapped because we are working our butts off morning, noon, and night, Saturdays, Sundays. We don't see our family often enough. And at the end of the year, we've generated this profit, but we don't know where it's at. Like, it's not in our bank account.
Correct.
So then you're stroking a check for something you really don't have, and then you're basically making payments to the government on money you don't have. I've never understood how I got in that position for all these years. And now, like the way you're running it, we've got money for insurance, we've got money for taxes, got money for payroll, and then we have this other money for, like, to operate with. I would never have done all of that, and I truly believe that most of my shop owner buddies don't grasp it well enough to understand that either. Because most of my shop owner buddies are, like, really good with the vehicles. Like, they started because they were frustrated that even as a carpenter, when they would take their vehicle in somewhere, it would come out all screwed up. So then they bring their vehicle out and they're like, well, I got to figure out how to fix this. And the guy's really sharp, so he figures out how to fix it. And next thing you know, he's like leaving carpentry and he's starting up a shop, and then he's hiring one guy, two guys, three guys. And then he's got a service gal up front. He's got a parts gal up front. He's got some people working for him. And he still was never given the opportunity to learn how to run a company properly. And I guess that's my concern, is like a lot of my friends in this industry were working really hard. We're just not reaping the rewards and the benefits. And now, like, even though your job position causes me stress in some, might be the position, might be her, I don't know. There's anxiety because you're babysitting things that my guys and I have never looked at. But for the first time ever, like when I walk in and I go, I want to buy you can tell me like immediately whether or not we're paying for it now or whether or not we're going to finance it. And I don't just get to do that a la carte. Now I got to walk in and say, well, I'm going to buy a new dyno because I'm in the mood. Like now I've got to justify it with what we're going to use the dyno for, how come we're going to do it. Even moving, we're moving this year to a bigger building. We're going to be hosting meetings just like this, where Rebecca is going to be able to sit down with you guys and whoever's helping you run your shops, whether it's parts people, service advisors, bookkeepers, whoever, trying to help people run and manage like profitable companies. Why do I care about your company? Because when your company is strong and healthy, my company can be strong and healthy, and I'm making the investment into her wages so she can help all of us. And she and I both see it the same way, that the stronger you guys are, the better off we're all going to be. So the new building is quite a bit bigger. Rebecca wants to take this really cool room and chop it up into little pieces, and I'm out. So she's going to be teaching these super cool classes in this big fancy room. It's going to be awesome. But we can do dealer days again. We can do dyno days again. We can do things that we haven't been able to do in years because we've been in this little building just trying to make money, trying to generate profit, getting us to where we could afford to do a dyno day properly. The new property is like 2.87 acres. So you guys are going to be able to pull in past our building, park. We'll host the dyno day. Everything's going to be on private property in the backyard. And with respect, you leave, go catch a hotel, see you at night for dinner, all the things. Don't tear up my driveway. Don't tear up my neighbor's driveway. Don't get arrested. I don't have a get out of jail free card. They're taking you to jail. That happened. Like one of my Canadian buddies came down, was ripping around the city of Monroe, and it was like 7 a.m, and he was already drunk. So Monroe's finest put him in the handcuff thingies, took him downtown, and they were like, bro, what are you gonna do? I'm like, I'm gonna host my dyno day. Like I didn't pour that guy's cocktails. I don't know. Like, duh. So it's exciting because, with all the pain of doing things properly comes a lot of good things as well. So, excuse me. Another buddy of mine called me this week, and I try to help. I've got a pretty young group of guys, and I try to talk to them the way when I was growing up. I worked at Les Schwab, and we had weekly meetings, and we always talked about the benefits and how benefits worked and things like that. So I just automatically assumed that everybody in America that's ever been to high school, went through a home economics class or whatever, understands this. And then I realized that American schools are failing us because they don't teach kids this. A buddy of mine calls me the other day and he goes, God damn, I got an employee that's pissed off at me because I cover it was either 90 or 100% of his medical insurance. Mm-hmm. And this guy went in and had a procedure done that was like 25-ish grand. And then he got a bill for like somewhere between $2 and $5 grand.
It's not bad.
Not bad, right?
It's not bad.
To you and I, we know that as grown-ass adults, we get it, we understand. And we just know that, there is when you crash your motor vehicle, the thing called a deductible, there's a deductible for every single insurance instant on the planet, right?
Yes.
This poor fella didn't understand that. He just thought okay, my company's giving me insurance
my company's
for almost
gonna pay
free,
my hospital bill,
and my company's going to cover my deductible. This guy didn't even know he had a deductible coming. And I get frustrated myself because I own this joint, and I go to the doctor, and anytime you walk into a doctor and more than one doctor walks in the room, holy shit, does that get out of hand. Anesthesia guy gives you a bill like 6 or 8 weeks after everybody else. Everybody that's in the room is going to send different bills. So it's kind of like if you crash a car, you go to the body shop says, yeah, we're going to fix all of this, but mechanically this was wrong as well. We send the vehicle out, and they're going to put the tranny in the transmission, and you got to send it to the tire shop, and then one of the wheels gets ruined. So you get a bill from the tire shop, you get a bill from the engine guy, you get a bill from the tranny guy, you get a bill from the body shop. And I think we all understand it because we're all mechanics, we're all vehicle guys, but we don't understand that about, like, we walk into the hospital, to us, that's the body shop. And if I only go in the hospital, then there should only be one bill, right? I just had a tumor removed off my back. There was 2 women in this room, and it was basically like an episode of Pimple Popper.
One was holding you down.
Holy
so
shit.
that you didn't.
I would have passed out, but I was already face down in a pillow, and there was nowhere for me to fall. So oh wow. But yeah, they, I turned in my medical card, my insurance card, and then I still got at least 2 bills after that. And I thought, how the hell come these people can't just get together and send one bill at one time so I could just pay the one? And it frustrates me and it makes me mad. And then I got to go through my little paper checkbook, because those things there, I always write handwritten checks for, so I can look.
Someday, no more paper checks.
Probably not. Can you explain the rising cost of insurance? Like, I know how much we spend on insurance for, like, as a total every year, and it's astronomical amount of money. I can't believe it. Where's that all going? What's happening
the
with that?
insurance company.
Yeah, the insurance company. We recently just had to shop out, was it car insurance?
Actually, it went down, but our insurance agent had to put us through a different broker because our normal carrier has had too many accidents, not with us, but in their portfolio with vehicles that drive in different states and for longer distances. And so as a company, they are kind of stepping away from those types of portfolios. So they had to find us a different carrier because our costs went down. So
one time but if you hadn't have squawked about it, then they would have kept running us through that same carrier, and our insurance would have rose, right?
No, the carrier was not going to.
Oh, the carrier's done?
The carrier was done. They're not. Yeah, they're just not taking those type of.
So I'm still
deals.
using the same David.
You're still using the same agent, but they broker out to different. Yes.
I don't necessarily think that me and most of my friends all get that. Like with medical insurance, I mean, that's an annual subscription, basically.
Really
right?
important to have people that are really good advisors that can, instead of you having to go shop each one of those separately, to have a really good advisor that can do that for you, and help find those, because those are costs that if you're not paying attention, they increase, and you just end up signing the paperwork and that happens to all 5 or 6 of your policies. That can be a meaningful difference in expenses in a year if you're not paying attention.
Well, I love it.
Insurance itself, and it doesn't matter whether it's covering homes, car, everything in the last 18 months.
Yep.
Insurance companies have raised prices.
I love it a lot. The fact that we're talking about this stuff, because like I've got friends who have families, and in the families they've got kids that are like in cheer or soccer or whatever. And as long as it's a school orchestrated sport, it's cheap-ish, right? Like your kids going to school, they're playing football after school.
But most of them are playing select.
But if you're playing some sort of a select team or an after-school team, you could easily spend, $800 to $1,000 a month. And then they say, oh, well, shit, now we're going to go to Vegas. And then you got a $4,000 a month because you got to pack up you, the missus, the kids, the one kid, and you're out $4K. When we're talking about monthly expenses that are on the rise and we don't pay attention to them, we don't shop for them, that $4,000 trip could be easily paid for as long as we have somebody, not necessarily the guy that's brilliant with his hands, but somebody else needs to be paying attention to that, looking at the bills, questioning the bills, trying to figure out how come things are on the slide up, and is there something else you should or could be doing to help offset that? Because really, whether you're a family guy running a shop, trying to do the family thing and cover all the kids' sports, or a family guy that wants to buy a new camp trailer, which there's plenty of those on everybody's inventory lot right now. They're almost giving them away, but they're still expensive. But that could be $1,000 a month. Mm-hmm. And for any of these owner-operator shops out there, we get used to watching an extra $1,000 go out the door, but we don't really think about it because we're too busy grabbing the phone. Hello, Dynamite Diesel's Lenny, or answering an email or ordering new parts. We're too busy taking care of our customers. We're too busy trying to do all of it. So I guess that's why I feel like these little talks are going to be important, because a lot of my customers don't have a CFO yet. And as much as I would love to say everybody gets a CFO, it's not really attainable for everybody. Like, we now have 17 of us.
I think more.
Is there more? Mm-hmm. I think there's 17 of us here. I guess there's probably 18, 19 of us total. So there's a pile of us. And each one of those employees kind of comes into the non-billable Rebecca side, but Rebecca's earning her money. I kind of want to tell them the story about the insurance check, but I don't know.
What insurance check?
The one that you found. And you were like, Lenny, have you called on this yet? It was like I think it was the first time that you came and you were going through my desk.
It was IRS. It was the refund. Potential refund.
So we all get used to scams and gimmicks and bullshit. So the Internal Revenue Service, back when I was on the other side of this, they would send things to me registered and I would have to sign for them, so I knew that it was pretty official. And this time, the Internal Revenue Service did me a solid favor, and they sent me something that looked like the publisher's sweepstakes, and it said, like, contact us to figure out how you want your refund. And how much money was it? Like 160, 167?
Well, it didn't end up being that much, but
yeah,
it was a significant chunk.
The reason why I say it looked like publisher sweep clearance sweepstakes was because it was $160-some thousand, and I'd opened it and I'd threw it in my desk, and with the other pile of stuff I was never going to process, touch, or it was just going to stack up. She went through my desk, like, first time in as CFO, looks at it and didn't look at it like it was publisher's, like, clearinghouse. She's like, Lenny, why is this sitting at your desk? And I'm laughing like, that's some bullshit deal, right? And she's like, no, that's real. So with a few phone calls, she found out that we overpaid on some taxes, underpaid on some taxes, got it all straight and square, but it was still free money.
It wasn't free money. It was money that we had actually sent. So we were just trying to get it back.
It wasn't free, but it was already money I'd stressed about before.
Correct. Yes.
So to me, it was like, I would have never called on that. I would have never checked on that because I was like in the mood to go help a customer, help an employee, do whatever, get through my day. And that's the kind of stuff that, if some of my friends are now to the point where they're doing like a CFO for hire, and it's like 2 or 3 days a month kind of a thing, strongly recommend you look into that.
Yep.
If you have 2, 3, 4 employees, look into a CFO for hire, get them to come and help you out, because you work for us all month long.
Correct.
But with technology, you can do it from home. And you come here to put your hands on the mail and help employ like new technology.
Physically shake Lenny once every 5 or 6 weeks.
It's not all fun.
Yeah.
Like I try to schedule myself out on the weeks that she's here, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that double stacked on the week you're going to be there. I can't believe it. Because she's a pit bull. Like, she gets things done, and usually it's money. And I like to spend it. I don't really like to talk about it. I like to earn it. I don't necessarily know. I don't really care how I earn it. I just want to earn it. But I'm not good at running a company. Like, I'm good with the employees. I'm good with the shop. I'm good with knowing what I need to know in the shop. But I don't really want to be any CEO ever. I think that I'm probably better at it than some of the CEOs I know. But, some of you guys just have degrees and no experience, and that's a big deal. Not picking on anybody, but seriously, quit having meetings to talk about meetings. Just have a goddamn meeting and make a decision. So we talked about medical insurance, talked about like shop owners insurance a little bit, talked about taxes a little bit. I feel like in the comments below, guys, Rebecca comes in every 5 or 6 weeks. If you've got personal questions or things you want to kind of get informed about, like drop a comment below and we will read them. And then possibly next time she's in, we can host another talk and hopefully answer some of your questions. So, again, I just care about my shops. I care about my teams out there that are, facing the front line, and I want to help out as best I can for anybody that's paying attention. And I think that Rebecca has the same attitude towards it. So I would say, unless you've got something else that you really think like Shop Owner 101 should be.
Make sure you have a good banker that you actually have a good relationship with and you can go in and have conversations with. They are worth their weight in gold, and you don't have to pay them. So it's a free advisor for you. And it shouldn't likely be the person who opens your account. You'll want to walk in and ask for a branch manager or a business banker. You're big enough to be, depending on the bank size, a commercial lender, something in that. Your accountant, if they are only helping you do your tax return once a year and you don't talk to them the rest of the year, you need to go find a new one. Because they should be engaging with you at least once a quarter, so that you can talk about things that are happening throughout the year, buying equipment, moving buildings, doing improvements in your building. It's really critical for them to know, because it's not always about minimizing your tax liability. Because if they don't know that you're growing and you're going to want to buy a building and they structure things in a way to create losses so you don't have to pay taxes when you go to the bank, you're not going to be able to get the loan. So it's a balancing act, and you need an advisor in a CPA, not just a tax person. Those would be the two big things that I would say.
I heard you say that we need a strategy, and you need to have people in the strategy team.
Correct.
One being a banker, because you're not going to borrow money from any banker if you're constantly showing a loss.
It's true.
Your banker has to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and if your dream is to own your building with your name on the front of it, and in your community it's $1 million, your banker needs to be able to show you what your profit line has to look like in order to be able to afford that deal. And once you've got the bankers kind of sign off on it, I guess, then it's up to you to find a good accountant, work with a good accountant, like you say, at least quarterly.
Yep.
Because you wait till the end of the year and it's a traffic accident every year. Like, it's always a surprise. So quarterly talks with your accountant. CFO for hire. Do you have any idea on what that kind of stuff costs?
It varies depending on level of engagement and what is required. But if anybody has any questions, they can just reach out to me directly and I can provide some resources.
Cool. So, Rebecca, how do they get a hold of you?
Rebecca at dynamitediesel.com.
Booyah. So that could help out a lot. And then another thing, it can be very, very, very intimidating as a shop owner who's an owner-operator, up to his elbows in diesel grease all day long, has one employee and possibly like his wife or his sister or mom doing books part-time. To walk into a bank and expect, it could be a very intimidating experience because you're like, man, who am I and why am I even doing this? But reality is, like, if you're depositing money into their bank on the daily, you're bringing in $125 an hour plus parts, and you've got a part-time apprentice, your income should be, a minimum of $2,000 a day. I shouldn't say personal income, but the income of the shop, right? And at $2,000 a day after a week, that's 10 grand that you've deposited into that bank. That still deserves, if you walk into a bank and ask for a banker, they're still going to help you out because they see the potential. You going from 10 grand a week to 40 grand a week to 50 to 80 to 100, don't be intimidated by that. Like, jump out and ask for help. The sooner you get a coach in anything, the faster you'll get to new levels of it. So don't let the intimidation of walking into the nice, clean, banks are always beautiful, they're always clean, they're always nice. As mechanics, it could be an intimidating deal, right?
Don't be intimidated. What as bankers and what a CFO, even if it's a CFO for hire, will know, most business owners, you are great at your business because of the product or the trade that you do.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that you were ever trained as a business owner, and most business owners were not. So you're not alone, and it's all of that stuff is absolutely normal.
Yeah.
So it's conversations they have all the time. And they're happy to help. Happy to help.
I get by being halfway goofy and funny most of the time. I try to be. Like, I'm not handsome enough to just get away with that. But I try to figure out ways to get people to kind of snicker along and laugh at me or with me and then break the ice and then ask for help. That's how I've always done it. So I'm probably always going to do it. But it still, even walking into your place, I mean, the reason that I absolutely needed it was because I was with bigbranch.com bank. The poor manager loved me and had seen all the tax problems, was there to help me as best as she could. I would sit at her desk like weekly and be like, wow, got through another week. Here we are, here we did. I'm glad that one's done, on to the next one. But then I went to apply for a car loan because the bank wanted me to buy the building that I was renting. And it was, at that point, I think we were appraising it like $1.7 million. So the bank was very intrigued in loaning me the money for that. So I said, all right, cool. I want to buy a Jeep Grand Cherokee. And she's like, oh man, I'm really sorry. I can't help you right now because your credit score was like 3 points below their bare minimum standard. And I was like, how the hell are you ever going to loan me $1.7 million when I have $30,000 in my bank account and I'm trying to borrow $20 to buy this car, and you're telling me that my credit score is 3 points lower than bare minimum? That seems insane to me. And she goes, Lenny, the bottom line is this branch is one of very many, and we have these like standards, and we can't change those standards. Like, I'm handcuffed. You've just got to get your credit score up. I said that this is insane to me. I'm going to go find a smaller bank. So I left Big Bank USA. And at that point, I drove around to about 10 or 12 different banks from Snohomish to Monroe, looking at all the smaller size banks that weren't like super big brand names. And that's how I came across you, met you. As a branch manager, you had horsepower in the bank and were able to help me because you actually saw that I was in a situation, but that wasn't who I was. So, asking for help clear back then, hell, even with my tax lawyer, like one day, I had this tax lawyer. He pretty much wanted me to commit fraud. So I called Rebecca and I was like, hey, this dude wants me. First off, this lawyer calls me and says, hey.
He wanted to meet you in an alley.
He met me in a laundromat. He met me in a laundromat in downtown Seattle in his building because he was in like this big high rise. He meets me in the laundromat and says, hey, this is my friend. My friend is going to start like a marketing advertising company for you, and you're going to pay him to market and advertise. I'm like, bro, I'm broke. I don't have any money for marketing or advertising. He's like, that's my point. Give him all your money. And then after all your tax bullshit's settled, you're going to buy my friend's company for pennies on the dollar. And I thought, this dude's fishy. So on my way home, I call her, it's like I pick up my brick phone and I'm like, hey, this dude. And she's like, oh, no, hell no. That screams jail. That screams prison. No. And she reaches out because as a banker, you have a different circle of friends than I do.
Yep.
Found me a good attorney. In one sit-down session with Derek, I was like, mind blown. This other dude was milking me for thousands of dollars every month to try and save my own tail. And with Derek, he was like, no, that's not how this game's played. Like, he didn't say anything wrong about that other guy, Art, but he did say that there was 2 attorneys in the Seattle area that he would never, ever, ever recommend using. And I had stumbled across one of them. So since that situation, I realized that as effective as you guys are at just like somebody walking in saying, car broke, Joe fix, you guys know how to fix it. You understand how to fix it, but we don't understand the other side of it. That situation, because the circle of friends and the network that you were in fixed my broken company in almost no time at all, got me on structure, got me, payment plan was in place. I was making my payments, and it wasn't easy, but at least I could breathe better knowing that I wasn't going to prison. And that was a big change for me. So a long time coming. Thank God we're in 2024 now. As bad as it seems, it's never going to be that bad again. I have yet to ever miss it. I've never missed a tax payment since I've owned my own company on my own without another business partner. Never, not once. I promise you. I will eat top ramen or nothing. I'm chubby enough I can live for a few days without a meal. But taxes are very important. Insurance is very important. Employees' wages are very important. And the rest of the stuff you can get by without for a bit, but those things are critical. I think we all know that, but if you're in a pickle, if you're in a position, then reach out to Rebecca. She can maybe guide you, help you. And again, in the comments, let us know what you want to hear about. Hopefully we can help you. I've been through a lot of crap, and here I am. So if we can help you now, happy to do it.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.